Let's talk Cardinals and predict what the starting rotation will be for this year's team, and maybe even how the bullpen roles will shake out this year. Do we want to just start by saying, okay, what's your prediction for opening day starter? Just
Matthew Liberatore.
I agree.
Will be the opening day starter.
You think they should just announce it now and be like, look, guys, yeah, we know. Matthew Liberatore.
I mean, he's the first guy to go in the Grapefruit League. They've already said that.
Yeah.
It's going to be him, barring health. There's just not a lot of other candidates, and he's experienced, and I think they want him to kind of assume that role and that mentality of being the ace or the top dog and kind of take that on. And I think he's got a chance to do it. I'm excited to see what he brings to the table this year. But yeah, I think he's the one that'll get the ball first.
Yeah. Seems like when you get, I don't know if he'll be the most effective starting pitcher this year. He's got a chance to be. You do like to have somebody that has been with the organization a little bit taking on that role too. I'm not saying it's all ceremonial, but
that or somebody that you brought in to be exactly that. That's why they acquired Sonny Gray. I mean, that was with that exact thing in mind. We need a number one. They didn't sign Dustin May to be a number one. They signed him because it was a good fit. But Liberatore under the current circumstances is the guy that makes the most sense.
So Liberatore, I'd maybe say McGreevy second, right?
I think if you're doing the game of ranking the prominence or the performance of the guys, McGreevy, I think I have the next most faith in. I think Dustin May will probably go second though.
Okay.
It's also potentially going to depend on matchups. That's where it's when we get into the season and we talk about the way guys are performing, we say, oh, he's like a number two. The actual order doesn't matter until you get to October.
Right.
And I'm including it in March in that, in April in that. I don't really think it matters who they decide to have go second. It may be for reasons other than performance. But I think McGreevy is the guy that you're hoping is going to be their second most effective starting pitcher this year. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's in the rotation too. That's another caveat of this conversation is which guys are
making it.
Whose spots are actually up for conversation and whose are set in stone. McGreevy's is set in stone. He cannot miss this rotation barring an injury.
Yeah. He's in, Dustin May's in, and Andre Palante's in.
Andre Palante is not in. Andre Palante is going to have to earn it.
Yeah.
I hope he makes it because I hope he has a good spring and shows them what they want to see. But I'm not so sure that it's going to come that easily. He may luck out in that they've got 7 guys for 5 spots the way that I see it. And one of them's coming off of an ACL. And another one of them could have an arm injury because it's spring training and that's what tends to happen. Didn't last year for the Cardinals. And so maybe it doesn't this year. But I would say Hunter Dobbins is the guy coming off the ACL, and he's supposedly, making his strides. But will he be 100% ready to compete for an opening day roster spot, or will he be a little bit delayed? Is something that I think I'd be watching as it pertains to the conversation about, making the rotation. And so and I'm not going to include him in my prediction here, just because I don't really know until he's cleared health-wise that he's on even footing with everybody else. I would say that Palante is not, to me, the next most likely to make the rotation. Do you want to know who I consider to be the next most likely to make the rotation?
I think I'm going to guess that you're going to say Kyle Leahy.
I am going to say Kyle Leahy. I think it's more likely that Kyle Leahy's in the rotation than Palante is. I think Palante is competing for the last available spot with Dobbins, who's recovering and is recovered, but it's can he do the fielding?
Can he ramp up?
We talk with Will Carroll about this. You're getting to the nitty gritty, but that's the question when it comes to him. And Richard Fitz, who has big league experience, and they acquire him in one of those deals with Boston. Dobbins came over in the other trade. I feel like it's kind of down to Palante, Fitz, and I will say Dobbins has just as good a chance as any if he is cleared and is ready to ramp up when games begin. But I think it's kind of a 3-man race for the last spot. I think they want Leahy as a starter to become a thing, because I think when you're imagining 2-3 years down the road, it's not to say that you're imagining Kyle Leahy in the rotation and that's the world we're going to be living in. But I think of the four, if I put him in a category with the other three, I think Leahy's got the most upside to have that be an answer for his future and his future with the Cardinals. I think they really like Kyle Leahy. I think he's a fixture. I think he's got, they've got team control over him. They're impressed by his demeanor, the way that he's gone about things. So, yeah, I think if he has a requisite spring, it's his job to lose rather than something he has to earn. And I view it the opposite with Palante, where it's like, hey, you were there toward the end last year because we didn't really have anybody else, but we've made some trades. We've made a signing. Yeah, we got rid of Sonny. Yeah, Miles Michaelis is a national. But I feel like Palante is really going to have to show something in spring to legitimately beat out the other guys in a heads-up competition for the last spot.
I think you're right, because it was kind of hard to watch from his end down the stretch, knowing that he had a rotation spot. He had the ability to continue to show to this Cardinals organization, like, yeah, this is what I'm worth. But yeah, I think they had to be a little more aggressive in throwing darts at some other guys that you could throw into this rotation, because of how not only that you knew, yeah, probably moving on from Miles Michaelis, probably shaving another spot with Sonny Gray being the trade, but the fact that there's ineffectiveness still across the board that you can't really rely upon at the moment. And so, yeah, Liberatore, sure thing. McGreevy, I don't know if it's a sure thing, but like, you're going to find out about Michael McGreevy. Like, it's fair to find out about him because of his stuff and because of his potential. We have thought of, Andre Palante has really done well in past years to carve out this role, but now it's starting to be a little bit shaky. And I don't know if the Cardinals should be in the business of keeping around shaky guys that, look, scraped and clawed to get to that point earlier, but now, like, you're turning a new page. And so I think you're right. It's one where you're evaluating. You're not taking a spot away from him, but it has to be him outperforming at least Richard Fitz, right? Because I don't think Dobbins will be ready opening day.
And I don't know if that's true. Like, tomorrow they could tell us, just kidding, he's starting game 2. And we'll go, okay, he's starting game 2 of Grapefruit League. Guess he's ready. But yeah, I think if they both, let's say that's the case, Dobbins is a little bit delayed, but they're excited about him and they can start him with that kind of rehab track where he's in AAA and he's not imminently going to be promoted, but he's like, gets to stretch it out and make sure his legs are under him. And it's like both Palante and Fitz have a 4.5 ERA in spring. I don't know. They'll pick somebody.
Yeah. Right.
But that's where it's like, I asked, and you can't read too much into these things necessarily, but the other day typically they do like a media availability with all the managers that are in the Grapefruit League area, or not even that. Yeah, I guess all of Florida is considered Grapefruit League. Yeah. And so all the Florida teams, whether it's Gulf Coast, Atlantic Coast, like, they'll all meet up at one site, and it's been in Palm Beach before. The Cardinals have hosted it before. And like, you get a chance to talk. They did it over Zoom this year, and I'm here in Missouri, so I was part of it. And like, I asked Ollie, one of my couple questions was asking about Palante, because he had was asked by Mike Claiborne, what's he most excited about? And he started rattling off a bunch of names in the rotation just to kind of see that competition. And then I asked about Palante specifically, and the answer I got was more about the group, and he is within that group. And so that's not to say that that's like they're not keen on him, but I do think it's incumbent upon Andre Palante to win the job. And he has performed in the past. 2024, he was their statistical best starter once he joined the rotation at the end of May. So he's capable of doing it, but I think he's going to kind of have to do it. Otherwise, that may not just be a foregone conclusion. Yeah.
So what's the Cardinals rotation going to be? Call or text us with what you think, 573-875-KTGR. So would you predict that he beats out Fitz, or is it Fitz?
I'm going to predict Palante. because I think it's also easier to option Fitz and Dobbins. Palante, I think, is making more money, which is, again, not a reason to win a job, but it could be a tiebreaker. And he's an incumbent because he's been on this team already. Both those other guys have 2 options apiece, so they're both eligible to go down. Palante is too. He's got an option, but he's making like $3.5 million. I think unless Palante flames out in spring training, which I've seen guys do down there, I think Palante would be my early lean, but I don't. That's my least confident of any of the spots, is to say like Palante over. And like for those who are listening going, well, what about Quinn Matthews? What about some of these other guys? Matthews is maybe the one that I think they'll get a look at in spring that could conceivably, like when they start spring, everybody's a starter and everybody's in big league camp, and then they whittle it down. He's one that if he can have a couple of good impressions, maybe he sticks around longer than you expect, but I don't think he can wedge his way in, barring injuries ahead of him. Right. And maybe 2 is all it would take. Of the 7, maybe one of them's already got the ACL and 2 more get hurt, and Quinn Matthews is pitching great, then maybe he's in that opening day rotation. But I think it would take something like that to get him in.
All right. Then what about the bullpen? Who's the closer?
Well, I would have told you 12 hours ago, Riley O'Brien. Now Riley O'Brien has calf soreness.
That's great. Yeah.
And we don't know. We don't even know the extent of that. Is it a deal where it's like, it's a little iffy, but we're going to just hold you out of the World Baseball Classic or ask that you don't participate so that you can be ready for the season? He gets the 9th when it's a good matchup for a righty to do so. Jojo Romero will be eligible to pitch the 9th, the 8th, whenever they have a good lefty lane late in the game. He's their go-to left-handed reliever. And those roles, health assumed, are going to be intact. Beyond that, Matt Swanson, I think, is like the next most prominent reliever, and he's a closer option if Riley has this calf issue develop into something more. Matt Swanson could be interesting, but I think my ideal version of their bullpen to begin the year is to have Swanson in the Leahy role, where we saw it a couple of times last year where he was throwing multiples, and that's not something he had ever done before, but he's got some chops. I like Matt Swanson. So like those are your 3 most prominent guys.
Ryan Stanek is in there, I think, too.
And he's kind of that Maton role, and you're trying to capture lightning in a bottle for really the 3rd straight year. Kittredge, Maton, and now you're hoping to be able to do it with Ryan Stanek. And I think he's 7th, 8th inning eligible for sure. In a pinch, you could throw him in the 9th inning. That's kind of your 4-pack of guys that I think there's some real degree of faith in. And then you kind of branch out from there and talk about guys maybe that have options or that are your middle relief core. The one caveat I'll offer is George Soriano, the guy they traded for, and they gave up Andre Granillo to get him. George Soriano does not have options.
So he's making this team. he's going to be on the roster.
Barring a bad spring, I think he's in the bullpen to begin opening day. But how long is that leash? It could be easy come, easy go. I know you might think, well, they gave up Granillo. Granillo's a promising young arm. I don't think they thought he was. I just don't think they thought very highly of him, and that's why you make that deal. It's interesting. Soriano has been on 5 teams since November. Everybody else just claimed him. The Cardinals tried. They won too many games last year. The other 3 teams that successfully claimed him since November won fewer than 78 games. So the Cardinals just were behind those teams in the waiver order. Eventually they said, enough of it. We're going to have to drop somebody off our 40-man anyway to do it. Let's just trade Granillo and we'll actually get him rather than having to just hope we get him on waivers again. So, and you mentioned Zach Kent, or you alluded to him earlier in the show, righty reliever that they claimed. They had claimed him in December, lost him in January, and now he's back. They DFA Brian Ramos, who they had claimed 10 days ago. So they're doing some musical chairs with the bottom of the roster, but that's just another guy who's got some optionality and is intrigued. Are we missing it? Who's a name for the bullpen that we should bring up?
Gordon Graceffo.
Okay. Yeah. I think he is probably is a good answer, is positioned into life as a reliever and another candidate for the Leahy role. We'll love to see Graceffo be kind of penciled in.
Yeah.
And so that gets you to 5. Soriano would maybe be 6. And other guys on the 40-man include Matt Bouchard, who they picked up this winter. Nick Rackett is a left-hander. You probably want a second left-hander in
Ryan
that
Fernandez.
bullpen. Ryan Fernandez exists on a plane
Roycroft.
of being. Chris Roycroft exists on a plane of being. Justin Brule, I'm going to say.
Yeah, I think he makes
if we're talking about a lefty, you're talking about Brule, and probably just on the 40-man presently racket as like two guys competing to be the second lefty, unless they go out and get somebody different. You've got guys like Bryson Motts, but I think they'd rather keep him as a starter. Cooper Jerpy, same thing.
Yeah.
Prospects who are starting pitchers. So, yeah, I think you kind of know about 6 of them, and maybe the 7th is Roycroft or Fernandez or a Pouchard if he can win a spot. And then the 8th is probably you want to have a second lefty out there. And that's your general outline of your bullpen.
So we'll see what the Cardinals line up with. But call or text us with what you would predict the rotation to be, what you would predict the bullpen to look like.